Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Casey Tierney. I'm on the investment team here at the LegalTech Fund, and I'm joined by one of our portfolio founders, Dori from SimpleClosure. Thanks so much for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Really excited to officially be a portfolio company.
Yeah, long time coming, right?
Yes. Feels like
Uh,
a very, very long dating journey.
well, we got there, and it was awesome to be watching from the sidelines, and now really happy to be, involved in a deeper level, and I'm really excited to dive into SimpleClosure today and get your story out there even more. But before we do that, would love to start with maybe something a little bit more fun. If you
Sure.
weren't working in legal tech, is there another industry or role that you're passionate about that you think you'd be working in instead?
Yeah. It's always a fun question. If I had to stay in tech, if I wasn't in legal tech, I'd probably be in fintech. I have also a background in like fintech. My previous company was consumer fintech. So I would definitely love fintech and the intersection of fintech and pretty much everything else. And if I wasn't in tech altogether, I hope I'd be an astronaut.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was in fintech before as well, and so it's similar to you. And I think there's a lot of interesting overlap with legal, and still get to see some of that world, which is exciting. I don't know if I would join you for astronaut though, but I'm with you on fintech.
Well, now it feels like being an astronaut, like it's one of those things that you had to start training from being young and like, you go into the space program and be an Air Force pilot.
Yeah,
But that's what you see. Now you just need a lot of money to be an astronaut
yeah,
because
yeah.
they've completely commercialized it. But yeah,
Awesome.
maybe it's not too late.
Anything that is like a surprising or little known fact about you that you're willing to share?
A few things come to mind. I think what, I don't know, surprising fact, I guess. I don't know if it's considered a surprising fact, but or interesting. I used to be a captain of a battleship and a platoon of ships. That's typically something that people don't think about or realize that's what I did in my previous life. I used to live in Israel, and military service there is mandatory. So as part of that, I commanded a ship and a platoon of ships. So that's an interesting fact. Um,
Yeah. That definitely is interesting. And
yeah,
I'm sure one day we can talk more about the parallels between running a battleship and running a startup, right?
yeah, startups are a lot more stressful.
Oh no, I don't know if that's like a good or bad thing.
Yeah, so that's something. Another thing, I think I met my wife in Fiji while
Oh,
backpacking. So that's probably another interesting fact. She's not Fijian. She's actually
yeah.
Dutch. But she was backpacking. I was backpacking. We met at a hostel in Fiji, and we've been together since. And now we have 3 kids.
Oh,
So that's probably another interesting fact.
yeah. That's the best meet cute ever. And that actually leads me into my last fun question before we get into a different kind of fun with simple closure. But if you could be anywhere in the world right now, would you be in Fiji or somewhere else?
So it's a great question. We actually went back there 2 years ago. I want to say it was like a 10-year reunion from when we first met there, and it was awesome. But actually, if I had the choice of anywhere in the world that I could go back to, it'd be Japan.
I'm with you there for sure.
Yes. And I've saying that after being there already 3 times. I've been there 3 times and can never get enough of Japan.
Well, I've been there 4, so I have you beat, and
Wow,
yes, I agree. My husband is half Japanese, and so I frequent there, I guess, for
you're lucky.
yeah, no, I'll go there anytime. Awesome.
Yes,
Well, appreciate, you letting us get to know you on a little bit more of a personal level. And this is a little bit personal too, but would love for if you could take us back to when you tried to shut down your previous company and what that experience was like.
sure. So I've been so context and background. I'm the founder of SimpleClosure. We started the company a bit over 2 years ago, and a lot of people ask me, why would you start a company that helps companies shut down? It's not necessarily the thing you wake up in the morning excited to do. It's some people even say to some extent morbid. And so why would I even do that? And what got me on the journey I am today? And the answer is because I've been through it and it really, really sucked. That's the honest truth. Previous company, we were in consumer fintech. We had raised a few rounds of funding. We were having challenges to scale and grow. And actually, at one of our board meetings, our board looks at the financials and the operating plan I presented, and they said, "Hey, Dori, the financials don't look so good. The runway is actually looking really short. We're not going to invest any further in the company. We don't think that the company can go out and raise additional external capital. I think we need to talk about a plan B." And in my mind, I'm like, what are you talking about, plan B? We're building a unicorn here. And so I asked the board, what exactly would you like to talk about or see? And they said, um, listen, we'd like to see a shutdown analysis for the business. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And they're like, well, we want to understand if we need to shut down the business, what is the timeline? What are the costs? What are the liabilities? Do we need to let people go? Are there severance packages? What do we need to file with the state? They flooded me with a ton of different questions. And the honest truth is I didn't have an answer to any of those questions. And so I told the board, let me do some homework and get back to you. And I remember going home that evening from the board meeting, stressed out of my mind, needed to get back to the board with answers at probably one of the lowest points in my company, my career. And I said, okay, I have to kind of get back to the board with answers. And so the first thing I did, I just literally went to Google and I Googled, how do you shut down a startup? And I was hoping to find a company or a platform or anything like that. Found a blog post from some boutique law firm that was probably like 20 years old, nothing I could really rely on. So that didn't help. And then I said to myself, well, let's go talk to other founders that have gone through this. And so I went to my LinkedIn and I started looking for founders in my network that had shut down and looked for keywords around shutdowns and on my LinkedIn, and I couldn't find anyone after spending a good few hours. When I realized really quickly it wasn't that there weren't founders in my network that had shut down. It's just no one wants to write about it. No one wants to talk about it. It's a very taboo topic that founders and investors are typically ashamed of. So that didn't get me anywhere. And so then the next thing I did naturally was like, let's go to my lawyer. I mean, my lawyer has to want to help me with this. And we were actually using Fenwick at the time. And so, and think about it, we've been using Fenwick for years. They help us with our fundraising, with our incorporation, with everything. So I thought, what's the big deal? I'll go to my attorney at Fenwick. Yes, it's going to cost me a ton of money, but I'll just reach out and say, hey, can you help me with a shutdown analysis for the business and preparing for shutdown? And instead of jumping on the opportunity, and which I had anticipated, our attorney's answer was like, oh yeah, shutting down, it's not really our bread and butter here at Fenwick. I might have some checklist I can send you, but honestly, you'll be better off kind of have a friend of a friend. He has a boutique law firm. He might be able to help you, but it's not something really we specialize here at Fenwick. So literally my lawyer said pretty much no. And our CPA actually said the same thing. Said, we're sorry to hear you're dissolving and we're happy to refer you elsewhere, but it's not really something we do. And so that's where I found myself like troubled, stressed, needed to get back to the board with answers. I decided to roll up my sleeves, dig into the world of shutting down, speak to industry experts, understand the difference between an ABC, a dissolution, a bankruptcy, a Chapter 7, Chapter 11, really got to like understand the ins and outs of a shutdown. And ultimately ended up putting a playbook together for my previous company. We presented to the board a few weeks later. The board signed off. And so that was kind of my entrance into the world of dissolution and shutting down. I had gone through the experience. It was the shittiest thing I ever dealt with. And then after that, when I decided to go back to building in early 2023, I spent a lot of time speaking to founders and researching the market. And obviously I can speak for hours on those findings. But that's ultimately what kind of the pain that I felt, that I said, there's no founder that should go through this pain. Like, there's so many entrepreneurs in America that are building businesses. It is hard enough to build a business. It doesn't need to be hard to shut one down. And so that's ultimately kind of what set us on the journey for SimpleClosure.
Yeah, and I can't imagine already a stressful situation and then going to the people closest to you who you thought would be able to give you advice, like lawyer and CPA, and have them be like, yeah, we don't really do that in your moment of need. I'm sure that made it like that much more stressful and probably more on your shoulders.
Yeah, it's interesting when things don't go so well with a startup or a company, you start to see that like everyone kind of starts to check out, and you're kind of left alone as an entrepreneur and a founder, dealing with a heavy lifting of wrapping up a business.
Yeah, and I think most people probably don't realize how complex it is to shut down a business until they like go through it. So could you maybe go through just in a little bit more detail, like the main challenges and like steps in the process and how SimpleClosure helps automate?
Sure. So what makes shutting down a business so difficult is actually, in order to shut down a company, you have to orchestrate and quarterback many multiple parts that kind of have to kind of work together and come to the finish line in order to shut down a company. So that means uh, state agencies, employees, investors, banks, payroll accounts, vendors, customers, like the list goes on. And the process today is very convoluted and cumbersome. You're required to kind of quarterback all these moving parts. It's across multiple service providers. A lot of the stuff you have to do yourself. A lot of stuff there's no information out there for. A lot of times, you're just like kind of helpless. You spend, weeks just understanding what you need to do. And so that at its core is very difficult and complicated. And then add to it that every state agency, every vendor, every service provider has a different process, from faxes and phone calls and mail. It's very time consuming. The average time it takes a venture-backed startup to shut down when they go through the traditional process, typically 9 to 12 months. And if they do end up using traditional service providers, it typically costs tens of thousands, if not easily $100,000, to help them kind of dissolve and shut down. And so that is like the process, the typical process shutting down a company. I'll just say one more thing, that in almost every case, when we looked at companies and did market research, companies that went through the process, spent a year trying to shut down their company, spent tens of thousands of dollars in legal and accounting fees. In almost every case, they ended up getting fines and penalties months and years later because they didn't shut down something properly. And so that could be very, painful and detrimental to deal with. Like, imagine you've shut down your company a year and a half later, you get a tax bill for $10,000. Like, where do you pay it? Who pays it? Do you go back to your investors
Right.
now and ask for more money? So it's a really cumbersome and complicated process. And at SimpleClosure, what we do is we've built the platform and product to streamline that entire process. The way I like to think about it is we do it in a fraction of the time, for a fraction of the cost. And most importantly, we use technology to make sure it's done right. So average shutdown we save on average 7 months in time for a founder and a company in terms of shutting
Awesome.
down. We do it for a fraction of the cost. And like I said, we use technology to make sure it's done right. So for example, we don't only rely on the information that the company provides, we also integrate into public state databases and other data sources to make sure that there's no stones left unturned and there's no surprises in the closet, and that you're not going to get fines and penalties months or years later. So we really, I think, have a great combination of this platform that we've built that has a lot of technology. We also have a team of dissolution experts and account managers that are there to support our companies through that process. But I think what's really unique is like what we've built to be able to scale to where we are today.
That's incredible, being able to take a process that could take a year down to even a much shorter time frame, especially when it's such a difficult time for those founders. If you can minimize that, that's great. And of course, being able to automate it as much as possible is better experience for the founders. Outside of the technology and sort of like the automations, though, as you mentioned in your story, shutting down a business can still take quite an emotional toll on founders, probably no matter how much you make the experience like as painless as possible. How do you think about SimpleClosure's role in founders' mental health through this journey?
Yeah, great question. We're very much lead everything we do with empathy. We understand that a customer is really at kind of founders at probably the lowest point in their company, in their career, and they're just going through a lot of pain. And so we really put an emphasis that like we've been in your shoes, we understand what you're going through. We lead with empathy across everything. Like, we think with empathy, the product, the marketing, the sales, everything. Like, we very much lead with empathy because it sucks. It sucks. And our goal is to give founders the peace of mind to move on, to take this off their shoulders. And so we invest a lot in that in terms of how we create our brand and how we create our marketing strategy and our sales strategy and all of that. We invest a ton in that. So it's something very important. And like I said, like I think what's so powerful is we have the platform that can scale, but we also have those teams of experts in-house on staff that are there guiding founders through this journey, that are able to be their, account managers and answer any questions they might have and be there to support. And we're constantly thinking, to your question about like the emotional toll, we're constantly talking to founders and asking them, what else can we provide as part of our platform to help ease that pain, and that those feelings that you're going through. And so actually we're things that I can't talk about right now, but we're working on a lot of things that are not just how do I shut down the company from a legal tax compliance perspective, but what are the pain points that a founder and entrepreneur has at this point in their journey, and what are the things that we can supply to them or support them with to make this transition as smooth as possible.
It's really good to hear. And I think the scale of the problem that you're solving is probably larger than people realize. Can you share a little bit more about how you're thinking about market size?
Yeah. One of the things that when I speak to people that I'm not going to ask this to you because I know you know SimpleClosure well in the business, but usually when I talk to people that don't know about SimpleClosure or the business or what we're doing, I usually ask them, hey, question, like if you had to guess how many companies shut down every year in the US? And usually the answer I get is like 10,000, 20,000. Sometimes I get like a 50,000, maybe 100,000 answer. And the reality is that every year in the US, there's between 700,000 to 1 million companies that shut down. And that's a really, really big number. And so part of the research that we did when we started the company was look at the market, look at the TAM, and look at the opportunity. And when I went to experience myself, I was sure like no one shuts down. Like there's no resources out there. No one wants to help you. No one has any knowledge on this. Like I am for sure a one-off. Like companies don't shut down. Like I am a outlier that I had to shut down my company. And in reality, when you start to dig into the numbers, one in the tech space, 93% of startups fail. So for every one that you read that raised money, 9 others shut down. And then in general, when you look at the overall SMB market in the US, there's about 1 million companies every year that shut down. And so that's actually a really, really big TAM. If you want to kind of benchmark it, you can look at the incorporation market. In the corporation market, there's about an equal amount. There's on average 800,000 companies a year or so that incorporate. And so you have kind of equal dynamics of incorporations and dissolutions. On the incorporation side, there's been a ton of innovation and a ton of technology that's come in the last kind of 10, 20 years. Stripe Atlas, LegalZoom, Zen Business, Rocket, like all these companies.
Yeah.
When it comes to dissolution, there's really nothing there that's been scaled in supporting that process. And so I think that's where when we look at the TAM, we think there's a really, really big opportunity to build the TurboTax of shutting down and build a platform that can be the go-to platform when it comes to shutting down companies.
Yeah, we obviously agree that it's a large, complex market, and we're really excited about what you're building and the impact that you're going to have on your founders and investors in the entire startup community. And hopefully we can start opening up the conversation about shutting down, right? Just because people don't talk about it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And lots of founders will be grateful for your place in the ecosystem, as we are as well. Before we go, would love to hear what's on the horizon for SimpleClosure. Anything you're able to share with us about the future?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot cooking, a lot happening. I think the two things that I'm most excited about is one, just continuing to scale and grow. We had a tremendous 2024, and 2025 is also shaping up to be a great year. And so continue to grow and scale our infrastructure and our system and the amount of customers we support. So I'm definitely excited about that. And then I think the second thing is, like I said, obviously at our core, we're there to help companies shut down, but there's a lot of value beyond just the shutdown where we can help founders and entrepreneurs in their journey. And so continuing to invest in resources and projects and products that can help them beyond just the core shutdown to make this process, a win and not just a loss necessarily. I think that's where those are some like big initiatives that we're working on.
Awesome. Well, excited to see you continue to grow and any new things that are around the corner, all the things that you're cooking up. Really appreciate the time today and really excited to get your story out there. So thanks so much.
Thanks for the time, Casey. It's great being here.